It keeps the tone sharp and critical but tightens up the structure, polishes the language, and makes it easier to follow without losing the punch. Markets in freefall as Trump rolls out tariff plan. Media allies struggle to spin it with the stock market in full meltdown. The Dow plunging over 1,200 points and the Nasdaq tumbling more than 800. You might expect Donald Trump's closest media allies to provide some clarity. Instead, the coverage has been a mix of confusion, deflection, and awkward damage control. Over at Fox Business, traditionally a stronghold for Trump loyalists, anchors tried to make sense of the former president's Liberation Day rollout. Trump's team presented charts that appeared to show tariffs levied on the US by other countries. But on closer inspection, those numbers weren't tariffs at all. What were they? A hastily assembled formula based on outdated trade surplus data, essentially dividing a country's surplus with the US by its total exports, then cutting that in half. It was, as one analyst put it, just a way to express how we're getting screwed. That's not economic analysis, it's vibes-based policymaking. Even Fox's own panelists admitted it felt slapped together. Okay, maybe that was just a fluke. Surely Trump favorite Maria Bartiromo would offer a more coherent defense. Instead, as markets cratered, Bartiromo could barely disguise her concern. With the Dow down 1,238 points and Nasdaq futures signaling a brutal open, she was left grasping for optimism in a sea of red. Feeling uneasy? You're not alone. So let's turn to the Fox mothership, where coverage remained mostly focused on investor panic. As the S&P 500 plunged 4% and the Nasdaq sank 5%, anchors reminded viewers that timing the market is everything, and right now, that timing couldn't be worse. So much for the business-friendly president. Maybe CNBC, home of the money-first crowd, could appreciate Trump's strategy. Not quite. One host bluntly compared the administration's tactics to burning down the house to cook a steak. Analysts questioned whether the White House even had a clear strategy, especially as global markets prepared to retaliate and the administration showed no interest in deal-making. One anchor asked the crucial question, what's the pain threshold for this administration? We're talking about nearly 5% losses on the Nasdaq in a single day. Another recession looms, but Trump and his allies don't seem to mind, or care. Meanwhile, let's not forget Trump's campaign promise, lower prices on day one. Instead, new estimates from the Yale Budget Lab show that Trump's tariffs could increase overall inflation by 2.3 percentage points this year, roughly a $3,800 hit to the average household. So much for economic relief. That's the real kicker. Trump railed against Democrats for inflation caused by post-COVID global shocks, but now in office, he's voluntarily pushing policies that will spike inflation even higher. If you supported Trump because you believe he'd ease your financial burdens, what do you think now? Let's look at the facts. Whirlpool just announced 651 layoffs in Iowa, citing economic conditions under Trump. Stellantis is slashing 900 jobs across 5 US auto plants, again, due to tariffs. And the Nasdaq is seeing its steepest one-day drop since the height of the pandemic, under Trump's last term. But sure, let's all pretend this is fine. That eggs being $1 more expensive was a crisis under Biden, but now that 401ks are crashing, jobs are evaporating, healthcare is under threat, and Social Security is quietly being gutted, well, that's just disruption, right? Trump himself admitted there would be pain and disruption. The problem is, his allies keep pretending that isn't what's happening, or worse, that it's someone else's fault. The truth? The real economic pain Americans are feeling comes from reckless overspending and misguided trade wars. But don't expect Trump's inner circle to acknowledge reality. They didn't when inflation was global, and they won't now that it's made in the USA, by Trump's own hand. So what's happening now? We're watching an economy intentionally destabilized by a fragile man eager to prove his strength, by throwing American workers, savers, and families under the bus. Your retirement, your mortgage, your grocery bills, all sacrificed to feed Trump's ego. If you supported Trump before, this isn't about relitigating the past. But it is time to recognize that what the Republican Party says and what it does exist on two completely separate planes. Trump promised to rescue the economy. What he's actually doing is dragging it into a recession. If you'd like me to reframe this for a different audience, e.g., more neutral, conservative leaning, or formal tone, I can do that too.